There's a lot of things going on in my country and around the world that concern me a great deal. And I want to try and focus my videos on specific topics instead of going all over the place. So I'm going to try and mostly talk about Greenland here. As a lot of you know, Greenland is a territory of Denmark. It's been that way for centuries. And they have a population of 56,000. And they also sit on top of a lot of rare earth minerals, which I think is probably the main reason why the United States, specifically Trump, is so interested in Greenland. It's not about national security. It's not about protecting the people of Greenland or protecting America. It's about sheer corporate greed. That's what it's about. And of course, his own ambitions to continue pushing the boundaries, the limits of our republic, and torching the Constitution even further than he already has. I mean, there's a lot of things we could talk about, but once again, I want to specifically talk about the situation revolved around Greenland. Now, when he ran for president, he did not mention anything about wanting Greenland. As far as I remember, I said this last video, it was mostly about immigration and the economy. But since his election, he started bringing up and doing other things that we didn't even think about, that he never even mentioned. Like, for example, changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, knocking down the East Wing for his expensive ballroom. Who knows if that'll ever be built. Renaming the Kennedy Center, along with tariffing almost all of our allies. Now, he did talk about tariffs. I do remember that. But I didn't think he was going to do it to the degree that he currently is. And so many other things that has transpired, like changing the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War, which, by the way, is unconstitutional. It's still technically the Department of Defense because Congress has to agree to that. What happened in Venezuela, I mentioned that in a previous video. What transpired with Renee Good, I once again talked about that in a separate video. There's many other things that I could go on about when it comes to Trump, like wanting Canada to be the 51st state. What a joke. But now let's talk about Greenland. He's been pushing for Greenland to become part of the United States for many months now. At first, some of us just thought it was a joke, but unfortunately, it hasn't turned out to be a joke. And he's trying almost every tactic to get his grubby little hands on Greenland, trying to annex it, trying to buy off the citizens of Greenland by paying them or promising to pay them between $10,000 to $100,000 per person, which I don't think that check will ever be deposited. I mean, he's still denying the $2,000 checks that he was going to send to every American citizen. That's probably not going to happen either. Citizens of Greenland, I wouldn't trust Trump to ever send you a check for $10,000 or $100,000 to buy your vote so that Greenland can become part of the United States. And obviously, this has upset the majority of the people of Greenland who do not want to be part of the United States. This has upset Denmark, which was, a longtime ally of ours. It has also upset a lot of our allies in Europe and, of course, the North American Treaty Organization, NATO, which we're part of. It has caused a rift, so to speak, between the U.S. and the other nations that make up NATO. And Trump is willing to do almost anything to try to get Greenland, but there has been resistance within Congress. There's growing resistance within members of the Senate who think that this is insane, especially the idea of using our military to take Greenland. That is most likely going to start a war. So the latest dick rider for the Trump administration in Congress, Congressman Fine. I'm not going to say anything else about the guy, but him and Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, they care more about Israel than they do the United States. They're not really American first. These guys are neocons, but I digress. Huge news today. I'm proud to introduce Greenland Annexation and Statehood Act, a bill that allows the president to find the means necessary to bring Greenland into the Union. Let me be clear. Our adversaries are trying to establish a foothold on the Arctic, and we can't. Okay, whatever, Randy. All right, so this was my response. Not going to read the Trump dick riding BS legislation that you've written up, Randy. Greenland has no interest in joining the United States. They have said that time and time and time again. This crap is driving a huge wedge between the United States and our NATO allies. If this nonsense starts a war, the world and American people will hold all of you neocons responsible. So that's how I pretty much feel about whatever push the neocons like Randy Fine, Lindsey Graham, Trump, and the rest of these warmongers are attempting when it comes to taking Greenland and making it part of the United States. And for one thing, statehood, are you kidding me? Let's just hypothetically play this scenario out. What if Greenland decided in an alternative, bizarre universe that they wanted to be part of the United States? You can't just automatically make them a state, Randy. For one thing, there's only 56,000 people in Greenland. It would become a territory first. And there's a lot of other steps that would have to happen before Greenland legally became a territory. There would have to be agreements with the people of Greenland and agreements with Denmark, which I do not think is going to happen. But once again, in Bizarro World, which is where Trump is apparently from, yeah, Greenland would not become a state. We have other territories that have been territories for well over a century, like case in point, Puerto Rico, which has a much larger population, millions of Puerto Ricans that are also American citizens. And time again, they have voted on statehood. And the slim majority, want statehood. The other half are happy with Puerto Rico being a territory. And there's also a growing percentage of Puerto Ricans that want independence from the United States. If there is a territory that deserves statehood and the rights of being a state, it would be Puerto Rico, which has been in the Union for over a century, not Greenland, if, big fat if, it was to be annexed legally by the United States, which it most likely won't be. I'm going to say this once again, and I know I sound like a madman screaming into the void when it comes to my videos and when it comes to my posts on X. I don't care. But we will be the bad guys. We, as in the United States, are those of you that are pushing this, you neocon scumbags like Trump and Fine and Lindsey Graham. You're going to be the bad guys here. If you take Greenland illegally and annex it, or even try it the old business way of buying people off, promising to send $100,000 to all 56,000 Greenlanders, and most of them don't believe you anyways. They don't want the money. They just want to be left alone. Why can't you leave them alone? It's because you want those rare earth materials or minerals. That's what they're really after here. It's not about national defense. We haven't needed Greenland for national defense ever. We used to have bases on Greenland. Like, why can't we just have a deal where we just have bases on Greenland? Isn't that enough? I mean, it's the same thing in Europe, right? We didn't have to start annexing countries out of Europe to put bases across Europe, in the Cold War after World War II. So I highly doubt that we need Greenland for national defense because, we've gotten along just fine without it as part of the United States. It's only because Trump wants it, and there are those corporate wealthy captains of industry that also wish to financially benefit from it at the expense of the people of Greenland when it comes to the rare earth minerals. That's sadly what it really comes down to. But at the end of the day, this is just another prime example of how our republic is being almost destroyed, hopefully not completely, along with the Constitution. And Trump is trying to set himself up as something other than our president. Most Americans, when they voted for him, did not vote for him to do this. Maybe a few of his Kool-Aid drinking MAGA cultists that remain. But a growing percentage of Americans that did vote for him have seen some of the things he's been pushing. And they're like, wait a minute, he never said he was going to do any of that crap. It's sad that we've reached this point where in just a year's time of him becoming president again, He's done some very, very questionable things. And he's proven to be way worse in this administration than he was in the previous administration. And a lot of people voted for Trump because they thought that it would just be a continuation of Trump 45. But Trump 47 has easily been 1,000 times worse, not just for this country, but for the world as a whole. And I don't really feel like the American people are benefiting from him as president. Now, Trump and his family are benefiting, and Trump and his friends are benefiting, and his cronies are benefiting. But the rest of the American people are suffering right now in a lot of ways. And he's not even going to send each of you $2,000. Do you really think that he's going to send $10,000 to $100,000 to every person of Greenland just to buy their vote so that he can do it the easy way or the hard way, like he said a few days ago? This is absolutely insane. And Congress needs to do something about this. It's time for Congress to grow a spine and tell the president no, especially if he's trying to draft plans for some sort of military action against Greenland, who's done nothing to us, by the way. It is a landmass that is mostly covered in ice, with, once again, a small population of 56,000 good people that just want to be left the hell alone. And just like I said in my post to Fine, I know he probably doesn't give a shit for my opinion or anyone else's opinion, except for Daddy Trump and maybe Mommy Lindsey Graham, right? If we do end up invading Greenland and starting a war with NATO, and yeah, I realize we're way more powerful than the combined forces of NATO, there will still be casualties. Like soldiers of NATO, of all the European countries of NATO, will be harmed, killed. There'll probably be citizens of Greenland harmed and killed. And there will also be American soldiers harmed and killed in this war. Hopefully it doesn't happen. But if there's some sort of Greenland invasion by the United States that sparks a war between the U.S. and NATO, I promise you, we're going to hold the administration responsible. We're going to hold the members of Congress responsible, like Randy Fine and other NeoCon warmongers, Lindsey Graham included, that were pushing for this annexation takeover of Greenland. They will be held responsible and accountable in a court of law, and so will the president. But you could just add that to the long list of things that hopefully he and his administration will eventually be held accountable for when the time comes.